bunch of the Epstein files. They are way too dark to actually talk about. However, I will talk about them through the lens of popular movies. So how would these movies be different if they were to take place in the Epstein files universe, which unfortunately is the universe that we are currently living in? So the first most obvious one is the movie Taken. You know that scene at the end of the movie? It's on a boat, I think, and all of these high-powered men are literally in a circle bidding on literal women in the middle. And then that is when Liam Neeson, he breaks in and he gets his daughter and he escapes. So if this were to take place in the Epstein files universe, what would happen is none of those men would ever face any consequences. One of them would go on to become president, and another one of those men was already president. The Lovely Bones is another movie that would be very different in the Epstein Files universe. So if you don't know that movie, it's based on a book. It follows the ghost of a young girl who was the victim of a serial killer. So she's dead at the beginning of the movie, and she then, from beyond the grave, helps her family solve her own murder. They find her remains in the middle of a field, I believe, and then they catch the serial killer. Now, how this would be different in the Epstein Files universe is instead of her remains being in the middle of a field, they would be in the middle of a private golf course. And instead of the murder ever being solved, the mere existence of those remains would be used as a threat to other young girls so that they do not go against their captors. Everyone knows the plot of Pretty Woman, right? She's an escort who meets this wealthy, attractive gentleman, and by the end of the movie, she's just a fancy lady, no longer an escort. So how this would be different in the Epstein Files universe is there's an escort who, through Jeffrey Epstein, meets this guy. He's wealthy, maybe, definitely not attractive. And then she does marry him, and she does become a fancy lady, but she's not really happy because the guy that she marries is like a terrible person, and her name is Milani. The entire Dark Knight series would also be very different, because even though Joker loves to sow chaos and is perfectly fine with ending people's lives, if he found out what happened on Epstein Island, he'd be like, no, that's actually really messed up. Like, that's too messed up, even for me. And then he'd be like, God damn it, do I have to team up with Batman to bring down all the pedophiles? And then he would team up with Batman to bring down all the pedophiles. Let me know if there's any other movies you want me to do, because I could do this all day long.